Welcome to Module 7 of SAAS Mastery. Here we're going to talk through testing your application. So we're getting closer to the end over here, but we wanted to cover a couple of topics. One is creating test scripts, and then secondly, we want to talk through user acceptance testing. So creating test scripts, this is your last chance. Your testing phase is your last chance to ensure that everything was built according to spec, right? Because if you go through testing and you tell the developers or the agency that you're working with that everything works according to plan, and then 6 months down the road, you realize that there's a core piece of functionality missing, they're going to say, well, you accepted it and, you told us everything was working. You didn't give us any opportunity, any questions or anything about, why this is missing or whatever before. So, if you want to add it, it's going to be an extra cost. Versus, if you're tested and you find that, functionality is missing, especially if you have a fixed price, say, project, you can make the claim that, hey, look, this is part of what I paid for, so I should get it. In terms of how to create and use the test scripts, you want to start with your design document, go through to make sure that everything that's in the design has at least a test associated with it. That way you can make sure, was it actually built? Is it working according to how it should be working? You should also go back to the requirements document again, just to triple check to make sure that everything that you're testing also appears as a requirement. And then, essentially your test script is going to be a guided series of steps that should simulate normal user behavior within the system, right? So if you have 3 screens, log into the application, perform some function, and then, click a button and data gets exported out of the application, then you should have tests that start with log into application. Do you get a success message, or do you get to the spot you want to get to? Do you get invalid password? You want to make sure you have positive and negative testing to account for everything. So what I mean by that is, let's say you have a login screen, and your action or your test is enter your username and password, click login. Did I get to my home screen? Well, that test to make sure that putting in the correct password gets you to the to your home screen, but you didn't test, well, maybe the application accepts any password as a password to get you to the home screen. So try to enter an invalid password to make sure that you get an error message. Look at the error messages to see things like, is this what I want to be displayed when I input an invalid password? You want to make sure that you're testing normal human behavior, but also all the permutations of what's right and what's incorrect action, to make sure that where you should be getting error messages or application functionality shouldn't do anything, that's exactly what's happening. Also, a lot of people and organizations get lost in the scripts themselves, where they create a ton of different steps and they try to account for everything in there, but make sure that you account for and allow ad hoc testing of the system, where anyone can kind of write their own test as they go through of how they would like to use the system and what it should and shouldn't do. So just make sure people can go off script and log that behavior as well, because you find a lot of things that when you go off script, if you have the script and your developer went through it and tested to make sure all the functionality is working, you shouldn't run into any major issues as you're going through. But just because that series of steps was tested a bunch of times and anything was fixed doesn't mean that other things aren't broken. So just make sure that you're accounting for as much as possible in the testing. We're going to make some template downloads available for you to give you a starting point of a test script, so that way you could just kind of follow the format that you have over there. Make sure you have a testing checklist where you're checking the box to make sure every aspect of the application was tested. The user interface, we have all the screens that we think we should have. We can get to the screens when we click the the buttons that should prompt those screens to come up. Your test script, if there are any failures of functionality, right, it should be split out between questions you might have. So there might be some things that don't work how you think they should work, or you have questions on, wait a second, this piece of functionality I think is missing, or how do I get to it? That would be an example of a question. A defect would be, I entered my username and password into the login screen. It's the correct password, and it didn't accept the password. That would be an example of a defect that a developer would have to fix. And also make sure you're logging enhancement requests too. Like, hey, this screen, it works, but it's not user friendly. I've got to click 10 buttons in order to do one action. Can we, find a way to enhance this so that it's one button to do that action instead of 10 buttons to do the action? And depending on, what your development team or the agency agrees to, oftentimes if you have a fixed price project and you're asking for that particular enhancement, you might be asked to pay extra money for that enhancement to be put in there, just because it's something that wasn't accounted for in the build activities. Other companies might see, hey, you're spending a good amount of money with us, we'll just do it. It's 10 minutes of work, let's just do it and give it to you as a bonus there. If you're paying for the developers hourly, then essentially the extra time that it's going to take to put that enhancement in play will be charged to you. There is software that's available for tracking bugs. So there's an open source solution called Bugzilla. There's also a commercial product called Jira that you can use for bug tracking. I believe it has a free plan if you only have a couple of users, but that's subject to change. And I think it's maybe $10 a month or something like that for their paid plan. So you just want to see if you want to use software like that. Otherwise, you can track it in an Excel spreadsheet or Google Doc to go through, here are the open items and questions, defects, enhancements. Let's go down this list and make sure that complete everything prior to completing the project.